So, hi everyone. Today we have my friend slash coworker. Do you want to state your name and what you do, your occupation?
Word, yeah. My name is Patrick Peterson. I'm a creative operator here at Meow Wolf Denver, basically acting and playing all the time. And I'm also a glass blower.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
What got you into glass blowing?
What got me into glass blowing? I was in the cannabis industry for a long time, like seeing the quality go up for all the products that people were coming out as far as concentrates and whatnot. Once I realized like how good the quality was getting, and then that was kind of paired with like, yo, there's also these people that are making like glass pipes and rigs and things that are like really nice, like thousands upon thousands of dollars, and I just did not realize how I don't know how artistically free that medium is, and you can literally do anything with glass. It's crazy, and probably like my favorite thing about that medium is unlike a painting or something like that, like you actually have like a relationship that you build with your glass piece, especially if it's a pipe. Like you kind of have your ritual with loading it up, smoking through it, this, that, the other thing. And I like that idea a lot, like having a relationship with the art that you're putting out there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I feel like we should have like relationships with like anything that we do.
Yeah.
So this is kind of like my question and how it correlates with like colonization and capitalism.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to pose that onto you. So how has capitalism and colonization affected your environment and your nature surrounding you?
Let's see. I feel like a big amount of it, man, like it definitely had shaped how I view everything politically in the world, specifically with the U.S. too, because like that's how the U.S. started, was because of colonization and that whole like manifest destiny thing, and which all bullshit and terrible things, and we should have learned to learn from each other instead of trying to kill off an entire nation of people just to occupy their space. Like we should have been able to, we could have collaborated together a lot better, instead of just like us trying to take over them, which ridiculous. And that is still very much felt to this day. I feel like all of the damage that colonization and everything started at the very beginning, like with that being like our cornerstone of the United States of America, like everything was just built off of that and like those moments. And even to this day, like one thing that I try and make sure that certain businesses, if they've been around for a very long time, I do not do business with them. One of the biggest ones is Chase Bank. I don't mess with Chase Bank because back in the slave trade, they would give people loans for their slaves and stuff like that. They made a lot of money off the slave trade. Oh yeah. Same with some of the older insurance companies, because slaves were property, so you would have to insure your property. So like they also got a bunch of money that way. And yeah, I'm like, unless you're gonna give up some of that for reparations, I'm not gonna mess with you, because you literally held an entire group of people down, multiple groups of people down for financial gain, which I could also launch into a tangent of like, what is money? Why do we even need it? Like,
and that literally goes hand in hand of like how capitalism affects you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, can you expand a little bit more on like how capitalism would affect you?
Yeah. So with capitalism, that kind of also framed how I view our government in a very strong way, especially looking back on I don't know, like the criminalization of cannabis back in the day. it was fully legal. Well, not fully, but like there wasn't any like laws against it. Was it like William Randolph Hearst, I believe was his name? He owned not even owned. He inherited a like a paper company, making newspapers, all that stuff. Like that was his bag. But hemp was a huge competitor with the paper company because you can make almost anything out of hemp, including paper. And William Randolph Hearst put together this huge smear campaign, basically like making cannabis seem like, it's like the devil's drug and all this stuff, and like also strongly tied it with like jazz musicians and just black people in general, and made it seem like, oh, they're lazy, this, that, the other thing. And yeah, like that was all just to put again groups of people down for financial gain. There's been a lot of things done just for financial gain in this country that like make me absolutely sick. Even not tying everything to racism, because I don't need to talk about that all the time, but like McDonald's is like a really good example of what kind of like they were a stepping stone in me becoming like vegetarian and then eventually vegan, because I did not want to deal with big companies that had such an influence on what laws can get made and not, just for their own financial gain. And a big thing with McDonald's was when they like blew up and became nationwide, they any farm that wanted to do business with them, they made them like raise all their cattle and everything in a very strict way, and they wanted to make sure that every single farm across the U.S. raised their cattle all the same, even if not all their meat was going to McDonald's. It still had to be raised so that all the McDonald's hamburgers would taste the same. And if you're getting other parts of the cow, that's a steak going to a different restaurant and stuff like that, but all basically just McDonald's meat, which just blew my mind.
It all just like, it feels like one giant cycle of like how we're trying to just, get out of that cycle. And like the terms that we do on like a daily basis, like I'm quoting like this author, Katz, the fleshy, messy, like everyday life cycles that we do, it's a part of like social reproduction, and how social reproduction is kind of entwined with capitalism, because those big powerhouses, they don't want us to succeed because it gives them more profit, and the more that they benefit from us, the more resources they're going to use in regards to like the environment, and like with us ourselves too. They're just going to keep gaining profit, and it sucks. Like,
yeah, it's an insane cycle, and I'm not able to break out of it myself. Like there's just, because it's entwined in so many aspects of life. Like I try not to, like, I can't tell you the last time I shopped at a Walmart or any kind of like big store like that. I try and keep it like as local as I can, and I try not to really mess with too many national brands, especially if I go anywhere like for like restaurants and things like that. I always try and seek out whatever's local, whatever I can't have anywhere else, because that's what makes the world special to me, is all the different unique things that are everywhere else. But capitalism is like, but we can have everything in every place all at the same time. It's like, well, not without exploiting people and resources. Yeah.
It sucks. Like, and this is kind of like why I wanted to do this like not documentary, but like this film, because it's like I feel like we, the people, as vague as that sounds, but not really vague, we have a lot to implement, like in our world and like what we do in our everyday life. And it's like I feel like we are not heard as much, and like we need to be heard, because we are the people that are doing these things to actually make the world go round.
Yeah, there's with as terrible as things have been, I do feel like there's a lot of people that I feel like more and more people are recognizing that how big of an issue colonization was and is in certain circumstances, and how terrible capitalism is, and I feel like more and more people are starting to realize all of these issues that are we're figuring out all these problems right now, and I feel like there's a good amount of people that are on the other end trying to combat it as much as possible. Like there's so many smart people that are trying to figure out how to like clean plastic from our ocean and other things that would greatly change, like give us a fighting chance for the future, because that's another thing is capitalism is killing not the planet but us. Like we will be extinct if things don't change and change like now. But then there's also like, oh, we still need to drill for oil, we still need all this other stuff to completely ruin the planet. Like it just blows my mind that there's still people out there that are so profit driven that they don't realize that like you're basically killing yourself by being so profit driven.
And you're also killing the planet too.
Yeah,
exactly.
With
with like the oil industry, how it's like so big and how it's so influential with just capitalism in general. Like it's insane how we have the implementations to use like renewable resources, and we don't do it because why? Because the oil industry, and because it brings in money and all this other factors that like the big powerhouse people are like, well, we need this because we need to get the money in our own pocket.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's an insane amount of stuff actually that I've heard of with people making combustible engines out of like water and steam pretty much, but those designs aren't available anymore because oil and gas industry made sure that wasn't available. I feel like Nikola Tesla also had an idea for like 100% renewable like electricity pretty much. Like everybody would be able to create their own amount of electricity that they need. It's not gonna, we don't need giant nuclear power plants for any of this, but that's also plans that are very closely guarded. All the gatekeeping, just to like make the common person, like the everyday folk, not be able to achieve certain things, just so that they're more reliant on the machine, which is, that's the huge thing with capitalism. Is man, I always say that like convenience is what capitalism is all about. Like if there's any kind of product or anything that can just make the general masses like docile and not like give a shit about too many things, like that's what that goal is. Like we just want zombies that we can take money and exploit, rather than give every single person the knowledge to be able to like have their own farm or grow it, like way back in the day, like in log cabin times. I feel like so many people were a lot more self-sufficient, and capitalism tried to kill that as much as possible, so that way you're relying on it a lot more.
It's kind of like that goes back to like colonization too. Like when the Europeans, like when they first wanted to settle into the United States, and they saw the indigenous people doing like ways that they didn't deem as right or the right way to do it, they were like, no, this is actually how you do it. And it's like the way that they were doing it was not sustainable at all.
Exactly. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. The native people. That's like how things needed and should have been done, and we are. I feel like we're trying to get back there. I feel like a lot of people are trying to get back to that whole like sustaining, because you can't just take, you gotta give, you gotta make sure that the planet's taken care of when you're taking things from it. But no, that was 100%, yeah, you're right on the colonization and everything. There's actually a book that I really like called Ishmael. It's a fictional book, but it's all about like it definitely changed my perspective on a lot of things, because it's basically told from the perspective of this like gorilla that can somehow communicate to this human, and just gives like, it's like the gorilla's perspective on how the world is right now, and how absolutely fucked up it is, and like kind of gives like a perspective of like, well, what would the like planet be if like, you didn't exploit animals, and like if every species was able to evolve the same way. And they even have like a little part with religion tied into it, where like they basically talk about how the Bible is, if you read it as a like propaganda text instead of like actual religious material, the whole thing is all about how talks about like farming and what was it? It was like farming and versus herding sheep and stuff like that, and how like if you're herding animals together, like it's a lot more sustainable than like growing all the same. I don't know, like something about like how growing crops was like what they were trying to push with the Bible, instead of the sheep herd kind of, like the shepherd kind of vibe, or something like that. It's been a while since I've read it, but it was very interesting how it seemed like, yeah, like with the Bible, like, the Bible is pure colonization shit too, like as far as exploiting the land, exploiting people, especially in like the Middle Ages, when you have like the Vatican sending people to all sorts of countries being like, oh, we need to radicalize all of them, they need to believe in God and Jesus and stuff. And yeah, I grew up Irish Roman Catholic, so I'm like, oh, they're terrible.
You have a lot to say, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
So it's like, so I guess like kind of like what the book
Ishmael, yeah.
So kind of like what I just picked off from like what you were saying. They're kind of like comparing religion to like the whole aspect of like monoculture and like the use of pesticides, and like to basically gain more like crop yield out of the whole farmland, and just push that out there instead of using like sustainable sources like herding sheep and stuff, and like using like cow manure to fertilize the land and like not degrade our topsoil. So is that kind of like a little bit of it?
Pretty much, yeah. And that's such a huge thing too, is like with all of these like giant tractors and shit like that, like we're ruining our topsoil. Like there's it's gonna be very hard to get all that back again. Like we just need to plant so many trees everywhere. But yeah, what the heck? There's a documentary that I watched that was all about that, and like different ways of
Kiss the ground.
Yeah, Kiss the Ground. Yeah, that was a fantastic documentary, and was also, now every time I see a tiller or some kind of tractor like that, I'm just like, no, what are you doing?
It's like, stop, please.
Yeah.
We're not gonna have any more soil to actually farm our food in. And it's like that's like the reality of like everything. Like we're going to a point, like I'm sure you heard of the Anthropocene, right?
I don't think so.
So the Anthropocene is like an era of where like humans are considered like a geophysical force. Like they're implementing their forces on like the environment, and like people in general, like just regular people like you and
Yeah.
me. So it's like, yeah, it's like we're going through like an era. It's like a very like different kind of topic, very controversial because there's many topics of like how you should call this new epoch. Am I saying it right?
I don't know.
EPOCH. Epoch. Anyway.
Yeah.
They'll understand me on the video. But it's like we're going through this new era, and people are debating it to calling it the Anthropocene, the Capitalocene, and the Plantocene. All like have different terminologies for meaning kind of like all the same thing. But it's just like the era of like how humans are enforcing themselves and how they're basically a geological force themselves on the planet and the people. It's like that.
It shocks me that people are still like, we're fucked, and I have no, what is it, like, they're like, I'm not going to impact anything. It's like, well, actually, yeah, you are. Like, all the people that don't think they're impacting are all impacting in pretty much the same fucking way.
Yeah.
It's just ignorance and convenience is bliss to some people, and it's like, no. We are affecting things, like, we are changing things. One person does make a difference, especially when all, like, that one person is making the same decision as a whole bunch of other people.
Exactly. And you just like have to think about like just multiplying yourself with the millions and billions of people on this planet.
Yeah, period. Like, it's man, it's like people just dropping trash too, just like on the sidewalk and stuff like that. It's like, you're not the only one who's gonna do that.
Yeah.
Like, try not to. Just do better. It's not that hard.
It's like when I like to think about it as like viewing nature as like one of us, you know,
Yeah.
it being like human and it having rights, and same with like animals, because you know they have feelings regardless if they're like just a cell.
Period. Yeah.
Like everything has feelings, everything's gonna have an impact to itself, and you know I feel like more people need to have like that care that needs to be implemented to, you know, for us to feel that, like, you know, like, you know, we just need to feel that impact, that, because they're gonna feel it too. And it, like, I don't know, it sucks.
Oh yeah, one of my favorite quotes from that Ishmael book is, and this one I remember really well, is imagine the planet as like a spaceship, and humans and all the other animals, like every different species is a different crew member of this spaceship that's making it run smooth. Humans are the only species on this spaceship that are killing off all the other crew members, and that's why the spaceship is all fucked right now. And that has always stuck with me. After I read that, I was like, oh shit, yeah.
It's 1,000% true.
It's so true. It's so true. Because like, even like, if we got rid of something as like people think so insignificant, but like the whole bees thing, like we get rid of bees, we're fucked. Like,
oh my gosh, that just reminds me. This has like, it's correlated to it. I read an article, and it's basically about like creating robot bees, and yeah.
Interesting.
And the whole article was basically like a whole thing, like to gain economic benefit, just implementing capitalism, and then basically saying that these robo bees are going to be more sustainable and more useful than the actual natural pollinators. And I read the article and I wanted to scream.
That makes zero sense to me. I don't know how that could be more sustainable than just the natural. Like, the planet knows what the fuck it's doing. Nature knows what the fuck it's doing. We're the ones that don't know, and we're the ones that are like putting walls up to block wind and literally do things to stop nature from just doing its thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's the most wild thing in the world to me, like how we live. Like, my brain makes way more sense of the world if we were back in caves, honestly. Like, just on the plains of the Sahara or some shit. Like, that life makes a lot more sense than going to a place to make paper, to trade that paper with other things that the planet already provides, but I have no access to it because of systematic gatekeeping and it's a very confusing time for me that we live in, and people that it makes total sense to them, I feel like are plugged into the simulation the most.
Yeah, it's like it sucks because it's like you feel like you're trapped and like you don't know what to do because it's like the beginning of like our discussion, it's just one endless cycle of being stuck, and it's like I don't know. I feel like these like thought-provoking conversations need to be had like with like everybody, regardless of like what your what is that thing called?
Status or
yeah,
viewpoint?
What your status and viewpoint are. Both of them.
Yeah.
What they are. Because like I feel like everybody brings a different opinion to the table, and we can gain from each other's knowledge, regardless of like if we agree or not. We can see each other's viewpoints, and
yeah. That's the biggest thing in life in general is just communication.
Yeah.
Like if we can, if we're good at listening to one another and especially checking your own ego, just being like I love to be wrong. I'm like, yeah, no, teach me something. I'm not one of those people who are like, oh nope, I read this on a WikiLeaks and I know more than you.
And I feel like that's what's also missing in like science, because I feel like science is all about like, no, I know this, and it's like the hard hitting facts in like any scientific paper. But it's like we leave out the fact that we need to listen to each other and care about like what other people are saying, and and implementing that care and like that listening and that understanding approach to gain that other side of that knowledge, and just bringing that like that joy in like just being normal, I guess, within science. Just like how we're doing right here, we're having a conversation and we're talking about all these different topics. I feel like that's left out of science in like so many different ways.
Yeah. Especially like when just like my sister's studying to be a marine biologist right now, and she tells me all the different types of things that she's trying to learn and stuff like that. Like she took a bunch of different virus courses because of COVID and wanted to learn more about the nature of viruses and stuff like that, but that wasn't required of her. And like I feel like most people in the sciences, you find like your little niche and you just exploit the fuck out of that one little thing. And it's like you might know everything there is to know about frog DNA or whatever, but what do you really know about like the environment and how that's affected by certain things? Like, like I don't know. There's just so much of the world for people to just kind of like do their own thing and not share it with everyone else. And like, yeah, with me trying to make my kind of like impact on the world, like, or trying to like have the most sustainable, least kind of like lasting impact anyway. Like I eventually just want to live in a van and not even really worry about like rent or landlords or that fucking hierarchy of anything. And I feel like that would definitely bring me a lot closer to nature and kind of like the lifestyle that I would really like to be in, but still, like, I don't know. I feel like if I'm trying to be like one of the good ones, not affecting things, and take myself off the grid, I don't know. I'm not trying to like make other people make that decision, but at the same time, I feel like I'd be taking myself away from any kind of like spotlight to like amplify that, to like show people like, hey, you can do a lot more things and not have to worry about checking your phone every 5 seconds for this, that, and the other thing, or I don't know, worry about gas prices every single place you go, or I don't know. There's so much to think about when just living in this day and age right now.
It really is.
Yeah, and I want to try and remove myself from it as much as possible. And I would love for other people to try and like join with me, or like if I had any kind of like help influencing people's decisions, that would be cool. But yeah,
I mean, you could. That's like, so a little bit more of like why I started like going into like environmental science. Is because I care.
Yeah.
I care about the planet, and like I don't want it to die. And like ever since like I just started doing school, it goes back to like the fact of like it being like hard facts. And it's like that's the only thing that was ever really presented to me in like this field. And it's like taking this class that I'm doing this like film for, it brought me back to like that hope, that care, that like, you know, that basically indigenous people brought into this world, and like how we took, like we're taking advantage of it, and well, how we took advantage of it and are still are, because it's basically just an erasure of culture
Yeah.
that we did. That's kind of like why I want to still keep doing it. Because I feel like even though I can't just like do it right away and like make that change, and like whatever I do someday, maybe I will, hopefully. So.
Well, I feel like the longest lasting changes take the longest to implement. Like, if something, it's easy come, easy go, you know? Like, if you made a huge change in, like, the blink of an eye, it can be undone in a blink of an eye, you know?
Well, I think we have said a lot.
Yeah.
Would you like to add anything more, or, like, any last thoughts?
Ooh. I got nothing.
Okay. Well, thank you. That I'm gonna stop recording.
Right.